Welcome to the Holistic Educator Academy podcast. And how we can build resilience and emotional agility through the inside-out approach. My name is Khadija Muhammad, an educator and a researcher, aka the Holistic Educator.
This is the place where you discover your untapped potential. You will also be able to learn how you can overcome your unresolved past that is sabotaging your present and your future. Also be able to learn how you can become the best version of yourself. We use a holistic, faith-based approach based on the Quran and the Sunnah. So let the class begin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, everyone, to the Holistic Educator Academy podcast. This is episode 6 with Rayesa Gheewala. Rayesa Gheewala is a divorced Muslimah coach who solely focuses on supporting Muslim women going through the painful process of a divorce and enabling them to find their feet and reinventing themselves. So in this episode, which we conducted back in the summer, we discussed transforming breakdowns into breakthroughs using the inside-out approach and share our own experiences of transforming our own breakdowns into breakthroughs. Rayesa opens up to us about the painful process that she underwent having to release her long-standing 17-year marriage and her children, and how that became an opportunity for her to rebirth, reconnecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, finding herself and her mission. We also talk about taking 100% responsibility for the choices that we make in our lives, finding the gifts wrapped in thorns when going through a hardship or adversity. And divorce is not an ending, but a rebirth, and so much more. This is a powerful one, so make sure that you get to share with your family, friends, and whoever that you feel will benefit from this. I hope we can all benefit from it. Enjoy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My special guest today is Rayesa Gheewala, someone that I really look up to. And she's inspired me. I normally say many of the mentors that I got were people that I couldn't get hold of, I couldn't be able to touch. So, I feel so honored today that, we get to share the same space together. So welcome, Rayesa. She's the Divorced Muslimah Coach. She's been doing this for a while, and she'll be able to, give us a brief background of, what like her work currently. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jazakallah khair, for inviting me and opening up your space and your sacred safe space for me, with me. And I look forward to just connecting with you and everybody on the call today. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum. It's really my pleasure and my honor that I get to be here and really just dig deep into the topic that we're talking about today in terms of breakdowns, breakups, and how they can lead to breakthroughs rather than it breaking us down.
The first question that I would like to ask you is, because I'm a strong believer of what we experience in our childhood manifests in one way or the other in our adulthood, if we've not been able to resolve that, because obviously as a child, we do not know what's going on. So what happens is we're carrying with us all this, baggage from childhood, and we actually do not, we actually unconsciously are doing this. We don't actually know. So how did the negative childhood experiences or trauma affect you while growing up, that you came to realize later on in life that actually this is holding me back?
Yeah, it's really important that you point that out, because you're right, this is unconscious, because everything everything that we go through is programmed within the first 7 years of our life in our subconscious. And that's how we play out our life until we start becoming conscious of what we're doing, why we're doing it, right? Otherwise, we're just going through the motions of life and doing what we think that we're expected to do, right? Or what we've been trained to do, what we've been programmed to do. So, there's been many times that in my life that I would have big feelings around pain and, disappointments in my life. I think I just couldn't see it. I didn't look in the right direction. And I didn't know, or I didn't have or seek out the support to look in the right direction. Because what do I mean by that? I mean, like, if we're looking outside of ourselves to help solve our problem, we're not going to find it there. We're just going to find blame, upset, anger, frustration, because those are things that we can't control. So it was only when I started internalizing and looking within myself for the healing and the solutions to my issues is where I started coming up with answers, because that is, our answers are within us, right? So one of the things I wanted to say, like, my own story and how I became what I do today as a divorced coach for Muslim women is going through my own divorce. And that was my breakdown, if you will. And I like to call it my impetus for my spiritual and emotional rebirth, right? There's this connotation that, like, we're broken and things can break us. However, that's not true. Allah didn't create us as broken people. We're not broken. And that's a wrong or misbelief. There's nothing wrong with us. We just have become disconnected from ourself, our fitra, and Allah. And when we have that disconnection, it can feel like we're broken, but we're not, actually, because Allah didn't make us to be broken. So in terms of my divorce, I think the one thing that I wanted to point out, you're asking how all of my previous hurts, pains, traumas, or wounds, there's many different names people call it, right? How I resolved all that in my adulthood is, when you have a breakup, or you're going through a big test and a big challenge, right? And divorce or a breakup in your marriage or a breakdown of your marriage is exactly that. And so those things are just going to be the surface wound, just the surface. And what I mean by that is, that's not the point. That's not the issue or the point. We want to get all the way to the root cause or the root source of where all this pain and this anguish is coming from. And it can look like it's because of your marriage breaking down. It's because of your husband is doing this or not doing this. It can look like, your circumstances or your situations, or what, how people are treating you, and how people are, what they're doing or they're not doing is the issue and the problem, and you're trying to solve the problem. And we get so focused on solving the problem when we're not seeing, that saying, we're not seeing the forest for the trees, just seeing the trees, but we're not seeing the whole expansive forest. And what I mean by that's just the surface wound. The whole reason that you're going through what you're going through is for you to heal the underlying root cause. And that is only possible through coming back to connection to yourself and connection to Allah. And so that began my journey in terms of healing a lot of the things that I went through in my childhood, just like we all do. We all carry around unprocessed hurt or disappointments, fears, anxieties, letdowns, all these things. We process all that. And in our relationships is where you're going to be triggered. Your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your parents and your children is what is going to trigger within you what it is you need to heal. So that's what I mean by coming back to yourself, because the healing is between you, yourself, and Allah. The other person is just a trigger that's signaling you to come back home.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's the process of mirroring, right? We always see what's within us, within all our relationships. I call it all the ships, basically. We get to see, what we need to heal. And once we've been able to do that, work, inner work, we also get to see the kind of, relationships we get to attract towards ourselves as well, right? So yeah, I completely, agree with you. Like, the breakdown or the pain that we're going through as an adult is a surface level to take us back to, resolving what's, that inner child who's wounded. And obviously we did not know how to be able to do that. One of the ways I would say personally, I remember when I was going through my own hard times, and I was working very closely with, I was doing some therapy sessions, and I remember the very first session, the therapist told me, Khadija, your problems did not start now. Close your eyes and tell me what you can see. And then I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then, and as I was working through this, and I was like, and every time I closed my eyes, I didn't see, the current state. It was like, things from childhood. And I was like, okay, I give in then. She's right. So as I worked through that, and also like coming back to that fitra in itself, as you said, coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I believe that in every, hardship that Allah puts us through, in every tough time He puts us through, there are always blessings within that I call, the blessings wrapped in thorns. So you get to, you get to find your blessings. And it's, it's those things, once we've been able to heal that, we get back to our fitra, and we're able to actually, become, the confident people that we were born to be. Because, our confidence is killed by the different, experiences. But through the process, when we come back to our fitra, we actually get to become, the person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always, wanted us to become.
Yeah, very true, very true. And as I was listening to you, one of the things that came to my mind is what you were describing about the pain, the wrapped in thorns, is very similar to that. There is always a purpose behind your pain. It's not to destroy you, and it's not to hurt you. It's really to elevate you. If you can see that, it's to elevate you, to grow you in this life, and to elevate you spiritually when you come back to Allah for the next life. So it can be a win-win. It's just switching our perspective when the pain is so grievous and so excruciating. We can get lost in that, narrative that we just lost in there. And we can't, like I said, zooming back and looking at the bigger picture that there is, wait a minute. I'm coming, like, what is Allah trying to teach me here? What is Allah trying to show me? What is the bigger picture here? What is the message here? Right. And one of the other things that I would just adjust in terms of perspective that you said, that allows us to become the confident people that Allah created, is that, when we are connected to our fitra, the way that we were born already confident. We are already confident, right? And you still are. Like, if you just, and it's this understanding of, it's not what's outside of you, your experience, like your experiences of your physical appearance or your education or your status or your wealth or your children or any of those things that will bring you confidence. It's the fact that you're a servant of Allah, and Allah already gave you that dignity and that honor and that value and that respect. He gave that to us. So we have to be able to give it to ourselves. And a lot of us this is what I mean, we have disconnected from that. We don't see ourselves that way, with full of honor and value and worthiness and dignity and self-respect. And that's why we fall into situations where we allow disrespect. We allow, being treated without value or honor, and we don't even respect ourselves. So then, we attract that same lack of self-respect, respect from others around us. And most of it's not conscious. We're not doing this intentionally or purposefully. But, when we are connected to our fitra, we are in a state of peace, in a state of contentment, in a state of confidence, in a state of calm and compassion, and even tawakkul. That's our natural state. but we've become disconnected, and we've just gone far away from our light. So it's just a matter of reconnecting back to our source, right? It's like when you talked about coming back to Allah and you know, reestablishing our relationship with Allah. It goes hand in hand with reestablishing your relationship with yourself, because as you mentioned, that is what affects all your other relationships. You know, if you are solidly grounded in your relationship with Allah and yourself, and how you see yourself, what you think of yourself, how you talk to yourself, is also how you see and talk, and how you see and think about Allah. It goes hand in hand. So, you know, those two relationships, it's not just about getting closer to Allah. Getting closer to Allah means that you start to know yourself better, because there's no way you can know yourself without knowing Allah, and vice versa.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So yeah, it's as you said, it's not, you know, a conscious thing that we do. It's like, because we're, as humans, we're pattern beings. So like unconsciously, you know, we're doing the same patterns that we sort of like got to see, or something that sort, that kind of thing, basically. But once we go through the awakening, we actually get to realize that, oh, you know, this is actually, you know, what we need to really heal. So yeah, in terms of like, when it comes to like the, you know, how did this, you know, these things that you needed to work on manifest in your then present self, you know, post being, you know, the divorced Muslimah coach? How did it manifest in form of like fears and, you know, and limiting beliefs? And at what point did you actually get to realize this is actually not serving me anymore and I need to change route?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And how did I overcome that? I think it there comes a point that you just can't lie to yourself anymore, you know, because deep down, each one of us knows what we need, what we don't, what's like, what we're doing, what we're not doing. Is it okay? Is it right? Like we know if we're headed in the right direction or we're not, right? Because it hurts our soul. It really can, when you are betraying yourself, when you are not being true to yourself, when you're living a lie. I mean, when you're living, when you're living a life of a lie, it kills your soul and it hurts you. And so there comes a point where you have to start being honest with yourself and truthful with yourself, and recognizing, guess what? You have a choice. We have a choice about everything. And that's the beauty of being a human being. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored us, elevated us, separate from all his other creation, that he gave us the ability to think, to ponder, to reflect, to use the intellect that he's given us, which comes from the heart, not from the mind, but the intellect he's given us. And many times in the Quran, intellect is referred to as the state of the heart. So he's given us all these faculties, and he's also given us choice, free choice to choose. You know, like Allah is our creator. Allah is we're obligated to worship him, but right? But he doesn't force us. He lets us choose. Even that he lets us choose, because he's above all. His dignity is beyond compelling his creation to worship him. The reason why we worship him is because we love him, we need him, he's our oxygen, right? So when you understand and recognize that, you want to latch on and hold on to that rope of Allah and that source as your oxygen, not because you're fearful, like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna go to hell, or whatever, right? Because that doesn't work. That's not a motivation to help you be your best self. So I think it was, for me, really understanding, guess what? I'm the one who's 100% responsible for my decisions, my actions, my choices. So, if I choose to eat a donut, which I did last night, and, I've been off of sugar so long, but I allowed myself to have a treat during Eid, and somebody brought donuts to my house last night. Usually I don't have these type of things in my home, but I was like, okay, fine. I ate it. I gave in and I ate it, and I enjoyed it, and that was that was the end of it. So I chose that, right? So I have to accept that Yes, it was poison for me, for my body. Yes, it was delicious, but I'm not staying in that. I'm not staying in that space, because, you know, you can have a donut every day because it's delicious, right? But later on, you also feel like, why am I doing this? Because there's implications and consequences to eating a donut every day, right? Because that's a reflection of not valuing yourself. It's a reflection of not respecting yourself. It's a reflection of not honoring the amana Allah gave us of our body, right? And that's a deeper level of understanding. But on the surface, you know, like on the surface, there was a time when I didn't think about all that, or I didn't understand that action reflects all of this. And so it was a journey, it was a process, but it began with me taking 100% responsibility for myself and my life, and what type of life I choose to live, because there is no limit. The sky is the limit for what Allah the abundance Allah gives us and the life that we can live. It's just, we hold ourselves back. We limit ourselves with how we think. So if I don't value myself and I don't take care of the man that Allah gave me, I'm going to destroy my body. And how am I going to fulfill my purpose? And how am I going to show up as the best me with ihsan if my body's failing me? Right? So those type of things it stepped up to seeing things at a very, very deeper level. But it did start with taking 100% responsibility for yourself, your life, your choices, your decisions. And that means there's no blaming anything or anyone.
Yeah, that just reminded me of a quote, that true empowerment is taking back your power, including blame. So yeah, so it just reminded me of that when you talked about, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like when we actually need him, you know, it's not him who needs us. It reminded me of an ayah in Surah Al-Ra'd. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if you decide not to, you know, not to, you know, worship me, it's your own loss, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the end of it, it's like, you know, it's us getting back to that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that assurance, you know, in verse 3 of Surah Al-Talaq. He says he will provide for him from sources that he does not, you know, he does not expect. And when he relies on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for him. How beautiful is, you know, is that, like, just getting to know that no matter, and as you said, every journey has a purpose. Everything is leading us to becoming what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala planned for us. We had our plan, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, this is the journey you're supposed to take. So at one point or the other, we will have to get to accept that this is the journey that we're supposed to take, and you know, get on that journey. And as we move on, we get to realize actually it's actually much more beautiful here compared to where I was stuck in, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of like the inside out paradigm, how did you discover that? I know that you've worked with Catherine Jones, Sister Catherine, and I actually listened to your to your session on the conference. So I was really inspired by that. How did you how did you discover that, and how did that, like, discover that, and how did that help you through your own healing?
Yeah, I love that. I love that question. Thank you so much. SubhanAllah, that started, meeting Sister Catherine started about 6-7 years ago. Let me back up a little bit. When I said, when I decided I'm taking 100% responsibility for my life, I'm getting help. And when I was going through my divorce, that's when I hired a coach, a relationship coach. I hired a parenting coach, which was Catherine. I had a divorce coach. I had all these coaches. I was just like, I cannot do this by myself. And actually what happened was that it didn't even go that way. What happened was that I turned back to Allah. I begged Allah with humility and sincerity for help. I needed help. And that is when these people came into my realm. Like I didn't know where to find them. I didn't even know that I needed to find them. They came to me because I asked Allah for it, and He sent them to me. And then I said, yes, I'm hiring you. I'm hiring you. I'm hiring you. And it was like having a support system of a team working around me, helping me from not drowning, helping me from not living in survival mode, even though I'm going through a divorce. And like I said, that divorce cracked open all of my wounds. It wasn't about the divorce or about my ex. It was all about me and my healing. And so that was the first step. And, Catherine is a parenting coach, but she's also the founder of the Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy, which, I'm one of the first batches who received certification through her. As being a Back to the Fitra mentor, educator, and coach. And it's all about when we talk about getting back to your fitra, is understanding who you are, right? And I say that to people all the time. Yeah, who you are is not your personality, is not what you think about yourself, what people think about you, how people see you, what your essence is not definable. It's not boxed in, it's not caged in. And the inside out paradigm really helped me to understand that, because that's just a name or a label, I guess, for the understanding of your psychology. Because our psychology and how we think, how we feel, how we behave, how we act, what are decisions that we're making, how we're processing and experiencing life, comes from this understanding. It's a system, and understanding how the system works and it doesn't work. And what I'll say is that the basis of this understanding is that how you're experiencing your life is coming from you. It doesn't matter what is happening, even if there's a 7.0 earthquake happening outside, that's on the outside, but your world is your internal world, because your internal world is affecting your external world. How you're perceiving, your perception and your perspective, all of that. It's like, you can have two people going through the same experience, but each one is handling it and perceiving it differently, right? And why is that? Because each of us has the ability to process and perceive our life, our experiences, our situations, our circumstances, with a choice, how we choose to look at it, right? So this understanding of the inside out paradigm helped me to return back to my fitra, because I understood how the system works and how it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The people and the circumstance and situation outside of you is not creating your reality. And a lot of times people don't understand that. It's not creating your reality. You create your reality. And that may sound really vague. However, it's really just understanding that your feelings are not coming from the outside world. Your feelings of frustration, your feelings of anger, your feelings of helplessness, your feelings of, joy. People think, okay, when I get married, then I'll be happy. When I have this job, then I'll be happy. When I have these kids, then I'll be happy. And you find that perhaps you've gotten all those things and you're still not happy, So it's when those shifts happen, and this understanding really helps you to bring it back here. Your life is always between you and Allah, all the time. Every step you take, everywhere you go, at every moment, it's always between you and Allah. And when we realize that, then facing the challenges and the experiences that Allah sends you, because He knows what He's giving you, right? There's a reason and a purpose, and He knows what you can handle. So you can face that in a manner that's pleasing to Allah. You can face that as a win-win in this life and in the next. Just to leave that there, in what the inside out paradigm is, it's how our psychology works. And our psychology is a spiritual experience, because your true essence, you're a soul that never dies, right? We are a soul, which is a spiritual entity housed in a physical body, having a spiritual experience in a physical world that we live in. So when we understand and see that how we're processing, how we're thinking is a spiritual experience, it changes everything. Because You don't need anything to be a certain way, or you don't need someone to behave a certain way with you in order for you to be okay. You're always okay, because when you're connected to your fitra state, you're in a state of peace, calm, confidence, tawakkul. You're because you're connected to yourself and you're connected to Allah. So the inside out paradigm really helped me to come back home to my true essence, knowing myself through knowing who Allah is. I hope
Yeah.
that answered that question. I know it was long-winded.
No, actually, it really answered the question, because as I was listening to you, I was relating with everything that you said. Because for me as well, I can't, I discovered the inside out paradigm through my own process, and that's what like led me to, taking the absolute personal responsibility that you talked about, and being able to say, you know what, I'm gonna, I know, like, I know it's my job to be able to feel myself with, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we all have this vessel inside ourselves, right? And the problem comes when we try to put other things in that vessel other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the only place, that's why when you said, like, people saying, when I do this, I'll get happy, when I do this, I'll get happy. The reason why we're not getting that happiness and contentment and tranquility that we're seeking is because we're trying to feel other things with the space of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've got like this little, space inside our hearts that only belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we try to put other things in there, then that's where the problem comes, actually. And that's when, like, our egg inside is broken. And because the thing is, if the egg inside is not broken, no one can be able to crack it. But if it's broken inside, then anything, we're like, wind, basically, like we're just blown by the wind, basically.
You're not grounded. You're not grounded.
Yeah.
You can be the rug can be pulled out from underneath you, and you're just like floating in space. You're not grounded or attached to any source. Your source has just been, it's like ripping roots out from the ground, right? And that's, that analogy that you say about the vessel, which is the heart, right? And that's was only designed to be filled with Allah. And how I describe that is like, it's like putting orange juice in a gas tank and expecting the car to go, right? That's when we get distracted in this life, as we know we will be, because Allah tells us in the Quran, right, that this life is just a distraction. Our wealth and our children, all of that are distractions away from the true purpose of why we were created, is to worship Allah. Is that when we start building attachments in our heart to our wealth, to our children, to our appearance, to our status, to our home, or whatever, anything other than Allah, that is where your test is going to be as well. Whatever the thing that you love the most or you fear the most, that is where you will be tested. Because when you love the most, love, I mean like this neediness, like you have to have it, or it has to be a certain way, you have to be attached to it, right? And you think about our partners, our children, our parents, we have attachments to them, right? But just like we know, that attachment is only meant for Allah. And we look at the example of the Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. He had the ultimate test to test his attachment, even to his child, right? And and even his son, Prophet Ismail, was willing to give up his life because he was attached to Allah. And if this is what Allah wanted, he was on board. And so we just went through, honoring that and remembering that holiday and that event, in Hajj and in Eid al-Adha, about sacrifices. And so attachments are, when you're going through a test, whether it's a test that's breaking you down or feels like it's breaking you down, the bigger question here is to ask, okay, well, what is it that I'm fearing? What is it that I am so attached to? And what Allah is really trying to teach you and show you, that the attachment belongs only with you and Allah. And then once that shift happens within you and you see it and you recognize it and you detach, then everything outside, meaning like it doesn't, whether you attain something or you don't, you're still in a state of peace and calm and contentment, and you can still enjoy life. And I think I shared that with you. You might have heard that when I talked about, the relationship that I have with my boys, and really, really losing them when I went through my divorce, but still being able to love them from afar, that I don't need them to be in my life to love them.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's really inspiring. For the audience to like get to understand the process for you, how, like, obviously it was very hard, but are you like, how would you be able to like describe letting go of that 17-year marriage and being able to move forward? Yeah.
That's a great question. And honestly, the biggest thing that I see here is that when I went through my divorce, it was only Allah bringing me back to Him. That was it. Because I had lived a life, and including in my marriage, of codependency. And the way that I describe codependency, it's shirk, is because we are relying and depending on others for our happiness, our success, for our feelings, or our safety and our security, that if we don't have this person, we don't have this marriage, we're going to fall apart, we're going to collapse. Like this neediness, right? That's called codependency, where you're relying and depending on another person for your safety, your security, your well-being. And so having a break like that, really, it cut and it severed a lot of attachments, but then it left me reeling in pain, because for me, that was my oxygen. And being in that state of desperation, and all the doors are shut, right? Because in codependency, you're always looking for someone or something to save you, or someone or something to help you. And so when all the doors are shut, the only option is turning back to Allah, turning up to Allah, right? So that began my journey, and I would describe it really as a rebirth. And that's why I think I resonate so much with converts, because this was the journey for me to consciously come back to Allah, consciously embrace Allah, accept Allah, and His deen and His place in my life. And so I describe it as a rebirth, and what the birthing process is very painful, right? It's painful for the mother who is delivering a child, and it's painful. It's not pleasant for the child who's coming out into the world as well. It's just a blessing that Allah doesn't necessarily allow us to consciously remember that experience, because it's very traumatizing, being squeezed into the earth, into this world, from the realm of being in the womb, of everything being taken care of. It's just another level from being in Jannah. Then you go to the womb, and then you're out into this cold, scary place, earth. And if you think about the metaphor of rebirth, of the cutting of the cord, right? Children still are very much so connected to their fitra, but you're getting disconnected from your source, your oxygen, right? As children, we don't understand or realize, right? We just rely on our parents. So much so is that could be another form of codependency, that we just do everything that our parents have taught us to do, but we're not consciously knowing why we're doing what we're doing, just that we've been told. Okay, well, and even that falls into shirk, right? Just doing it because how like people get really attached to customs and traditions, right? There's nothing wrong with customs and traditions, but it's understanding what's the relevance of it, right? And does it have anything to do with worshiping Allah, or is it pleasing to Allah, or is it displeasing to Allah? And so getting back to the traumatic, painful experience of birth, it is a traumatic, painful experience. And it was up until I found the inside out paradigm. I still feel pain, but I'm not scared of it. I'm a human being, like we all are, and we feel. Allah made us to feel all of our feelings: pain, anguish, upset, anger, frustration, joy, excitement, happiness. All those things, we're meant to feel all of the feelings from one end to the end. However, the feelings don't own you. The feelings don't define you, because you understand that the feelings is just a signal to come back home, because you've gotten disconnected in the moment. And so I'm no longer afraid of my feelings. I'm no longer afraid of my experience. I can feel fear in, in the many layers and layers. For the last 7 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has pulled all the layers back in terms of my attachments, slowly shedding. And it's the beauty of Allah that He doesn't cut the cord and leave you hanging. You know what I mean? He takes you by the hand, slowly with what you can handle. So that's why the tests keep coming, is to keep elevating you, right? And to help you rely exclusively only on Allah. That you know that if you had no one and you had nothing, you're still rich, because if you have Allah. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the tawakkul that Prophet Musa had, when he's standing and he is faced with this, what looks like the end, right? But his conviction and like, no, I know Allah is not leaving me or abandoning me. Like that conviction, when you end up with that, it's a very, very powerful place to live from, because there is no limits. You can do anything you want, and whatever Allah has planned for you, you can reach it. Like that potential. We talk about reaching our potential. Well, our potential has no limits, only the limits we put on it. So getting back to that, painful experience, I'm no longer afraid of my feelings. I can sit with my feelings. I can hold space for my feelings, that it's okay. I'm going to sit in the discomfort of the feelings, of the fear, feeling the fear and knowing that I'm safe, knowing that I'm okay, because I'm connected to Allah. And once you recognize that and you no longer are afraid of your feelings and your experience, then, you can move beyond that. It's not holding you back anymore. The fear doesn't hold you back. The panic, the worry, the anxiety, the unknown doesn't hold you back anymore. You could still do what you want to do, or what's right for you in your wisdom. And you don't have to worry about the outcome. You don't have to worry of what will happen, because when you're attached to Allah, He's taking care of that. It's like, when you're planning a party or something and you're delegating, okay, this one's doing decorations, this one's doing that. And you're like, okay, they got it. They're handling that. It's like same thing. You're delegating your outcome to Allah. That's not our job anyways. That's only Allah's job. And we don't want to compete with Allah in terms of controlling how we want things to come out, right? And so, like I said, the journey was there. Yes, I went through many tests and hardships, including, having to release my children to go and live with their father, and that included a lot of, unfortunately for them, that meant that they had to completely reject and abandon me in order to survive, living in the other environment, and for me, releasing my children in that way, it was very reminiscent. I took a lot of comfort in the story of Prophet Musa and his mother, releasing her son with trust and reliance on Allah, that, wait a minute, they were never mine to begin with. They belong to Allah. He's got them. He's handling it. He knows what they need. He knows what experience says that they need to have in their life. And, I don't need them to do anything or to be anything or to even be in my life in order for me to be okay and to be happy and to be content and live my life with joy and happiness and purpose. And, with the hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reunite us in a better way than it would have been had, things stayed the same in that situation. And so, it allows you, having this understanding of the inside out paradigm and how your psychological system works and how it affects you and your actions and your decisions, allows you to release your deepest attachments and just rely on Allah and know that, alhamdulillah, everything will be okay. So everyone has this, like, it's possible for everyone and anyone. This is how we were built and designed, to be connected to our fitra, our light, our nur, to be connected to Allah. And that's the way it is for all human beings. It's just we've gotten disconnected and we just don't understand how we work. You know, we have a cardiovascular system, we have an immunological system, we have a pulmonological system, but we don't have to do anything to turn these on to get them to work, right? It's the same thing. We have a psychological, spiritual system. It's just we don't understand how it works. So we're messing things up for ourselves all the time.
Completely agree with you. Thank you very much. That was really, inspiring just listening to you and, going through that process of letting go of your children. And, the Quran in itself is a collection of stories. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reassures us, in Surah Taha, he tells, Musa, don't be afraid. I'm with you. I can hear and I can see, basically. So it's it's really amazing to be able to get that reassurance, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already has given us in the Quran, and let us get to know about about it. And every time we feel we're we're scared, we have fears, where is the best place to go and find that reassurance? Going back to to the Quran in itself, and Surah Taha is one of them, and Surah Yusuf, which is one of my favorites for me. Like, it's so close to me because it was actually a reflection of my own life through the process. So being able to go back to the Quran and being able to connect with it through that process, and being able to come to that understanding, like you said, getting to know how our psychology works, because the moment we change we change the perspective or the way we look at things, the things we look at change, right? One of the things that I as I was listening to you regarding the codependence, I feel like many of our communities, especially in the Muslim community, there's this urge that makes, and it's not, it's not coming from an Islamic perspective, because we know of, the Sahabiyats who were strong, and they were, they were strong within themselves, basically. But there's this kind of community, notion whereby that makes women feel like they're not enough until they have a man by their side. And somehow we've unconsciously taken that in ourselves to feel like that, so that we can, and then we we unconsciously place it on the other person to make us feel okay. So yeah, what would you what do you think about that, basically?
Yeah, that's why it's so important to understand your psychology and how you work and how you don't work. Even when somebody tries to project or to put their thinking onto you, you get to choose whether you want to take it on or not. But you have to be conscious and aware of that, of how it works. If you're not, then automatically you're used to absorbing people's thoughts, thinkings, and opinions and ideas and expectations on you, right? So then we just go around people pleasing and pleasing everyone else rather than thinking about what is pleasing to Allah. Allah is lost in the equation. Where is Allah, right? So I really, the best way forward, I mean, marriage is such a beautiful thing, and it's such an important part of our deen that it's like half your deen, right? So, but the thing is that we're going about it in the wrong way. We need to start developing the self first before you just bring another person and attach to that person, because you are a unique entity. You have to have your own foundation. And what I teach in my course is really when you come together with another person in a marriage, you have two people at the bottom coming together to create a foundation or a family. And then it's like a triangle, and you build the family on top. So the base, the foundation has to be strong. And what's on the base? It's the man and the wife, right? And so each person has to have their own strong foundation. And we talked about grounding and you're having a strong, solid, secure foundation. And where do you get that? You get that with your relationship with Allah and your relationship with yourself. And relationship with Allah does not mean praying, fasting, giving charity and being religious, because that's not a relationship. That's just actions. But I'm talking about relationship. I'm talking about connection. I'm talking about Allah being on your mind all the time, right? Because if you reflect, what are the things that are on your mind all the time? It's like you think about that, you reflect and you look in here. The things that are on our mind all the time are usually a lot of worry about things and people. So is Allah with you at all times, right? Allah tells us that he's closer to our jugular than we are. So Allah is close to us, but are we close to Allah, right? So sometimes we're not feeling close to Allah. It's like, ask yourself, who moved? Who moved away, right? And so each person in the couple has to have their own relationship with Allah and themselves, see themselves as a unique entity, then come together with a person who will enhance and who will support each other in their growth and not be threatened by it, to build this family, right? So they have to have Allah between them, and they have to have Allah in their family. And that's the common denominator, is that we have subconsciously forgotten or dropped Allah from the picture. And that might seem offensive to some people. What do you mean? I'm a practicing Muslim. Again, it's not about going through the motions, just doing the actions, just rote automation, autopilot, right? It's really about your connection. Do you feel connected to Allah? Do you feel connected to yourself? How do you do you talk to Allah? Do you feel he's with you? Do you feel safe and secure by yourself because you know Allah is with you, right? So this way, and when Allah is with you, you will be conscious to do the right thing. You will be pleasing your spouse, not to please your spouse and to manage his or her feelings to make them happy. You're pleasing Allah. You're making Allah happy when you're serving, or you're being your best self, or you're giving of yourself to your partner and your spouse. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for Allah. That's the shift.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So in terms of like your own journey to becoming, the coach that you are, at what point did you feel that this is the journey that I'm meant to, to go to, or this is my purpose? Because I'm sure you've had that moment, because I did have that with my own experience.
Yeah. So it's interesting because my journey, as I was a young person, I always wanted to be a teacher, but everyone in my family was always in the medical field. And so I was expected and really very encouraged and pushed to go into the medical field. So I've been a pharmacist for 24 years, and that's what I've been trained to do. However, going through my divorce and getting the help that I needed, I also realized what my mission was. I know my purpose, which is to worship Allah, but there's many different ways we can do that. Even this interaction can be an act of worship if we make the intention to be pleasing to Allah, right? And I had many different missions and many different missions along the way. And one of them was even raising God-conscious children who use their own talents and gifts to serve Allah in this world. And then as my life was shifting and I understood that, wait a minute, I need to start focusing on myself, get myself into order. And as I was doing that, I realized, you know what, I've been through this journey, and it's a calling. I'm being called to share this with others, to help others in the same scenario and situation, to help them get closer to Allah. And I have the opportunity to do it, and there's no reason why I can't. And so, when I understood that, I realized, and that was a test. And that was the peeling back of the layers and the tawakkul and the trust of leaving that profession, that has safety and security of a paycheck, right? And working for myself and really sharing my message and supporting other people. Because when I had that shift internally within me, that, wait a minute, am I staying in this job just for a paycheck? And then having the insight that, wait a minute, my paycheck comes from Allah. Allah is the source. The job is just the means, right? Like the means of the risk, that the source is always Allah, but the means can change. So when I had that shift and I made the decision to leave that profession and just focus full time on this, was another test and another way to bring me closer to Allah and have more tawakkul. It was a tawakkul building experience, it's helped me to see, like, I get to choose what I do with my time. So am I choosing to do something that I don't, I wasn't feeling like had a purpose in what I was doing. I felt like I knew where my mission and my purpose was and what I was being called to do. So why am I not doing it? And so, a lot of things opened up for me in terms of in my business and in my work, when I had that internal shift. And, Allah tells us he doesn't change your circumstance or your situation until you change what's within yourself. So through that insight, which came from Allah, because that was the truth, whether I saw it or not, it was just Allah allowed me to see that. He removed some of the barriers on my heart, because again, that's another attachment. Am I attached to the job, or am I attached to Allah, which is the source? So, as we're shedding attachments, our heart is getting closer to Allah. The veils are being lifted for you to be able to see, not from here, but from here, to see the truth. And so that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, so I was listening to you, I was remembering the last verse. I think it's the last verse of Surah Yusuf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's wisdom in the stories, li'ulil albab. So but that is only available for those who see with their heart, not with their eyes, basically. Just reflecting, on my own journey, with finding myself into this purpose. Like yourself, I always wanted to become, a teacher. I wanted to, teach people, and that's what actually took me to, doing a PhD in life skills development. Because when growing up, I came from this low income community whereby I always wanted to be motivated. I wanted to be told that, what, this is not permanent. So as I was going through that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's so interesting, because for us to become, for us to be able to write the book, we need to become the book first, right? So, and then I was taken through that journey of actually going through, the tests that I had to go through, so that I can be able to teach not from just the mountaintop, but from experience. So so it's really amazing, when we are guided towards that journey, and we come to realize, actually, this is the purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding us to, and we actually really feel it inside of ourselves, from the gut and the heart, basically. So in terms of for any woman who's listening to you right now, regardless of their situation, whether they're going through the pain of a divorce, or the pain of other experiences, or maybe they're facing pressures from the community, that they're unmarried, because I know in our communities there's a lot around that as well. How do you reassure them and tell them, what, everything happens within? Obviously it's one thing if they want it, and they really want it, and continue making dua for it, but also understanding that you're perfect within yourself, you're enough. How do you get to what would you advise a woman who's listening to this?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because at the end of the day, we all are going through struggles and hardships. And what you said is that word reassure. How would I reassure them? And I want to shift a little bit and say, it's not me reassuring you. You have to go back to Allah reassuring you. Allah does reassure us. And I'm just a person, you're just a person, we're all people, we're all the same. We're human. There's nothing, we don't have any greater superpowers, right, over each other. But that's not the case for Allah. We have to turn back to Allah in terms of direction, in terms of guidance. Ask Allah. And look for the reassurance from Allah. It's there in the Quran. It's there through Allah and your connection in your heart, for Allah to inspire you to feel connected and strong and secure and safe, whether you're married or not married, whether you're single or you're not single, whether you have a job or you don't have a job, whether you have a marriage or not, whether you have kids or not. You're feeling safe, secure, happy, peace, content is not dependent on those things. Your well-being is not dependent on those things. So go back to Allah. Don't give up, because there's always hope. Always, always, always hope. Because Allah created you to go back to Him. So that's what He's there for. When it feels so there's so much pressure everywhere you look, you don't know where to turn, just turn back to Allah. And that will be the beginning of your journey. Turn back to Allah with hope, with submission, with surrender. I'm here, Allah. I mean, I give up. I don't know what to do. You have to guide me. You have to help me. Like, talk to Allah, like, you know, like, you need to fix this for me. And that's what Allah is there for. So you to look for that reassurance and that guidance, it only comes from Allah. And then the relationship you have with yourself. Start with Allah and then yourself, you know, get the support and help, because like you said, you talked earlier about patterns. You know, as was it you or no, maybe I heard somebody else earlier, as human beings, we're cyclical. We have cyclical thinking patterns, behavior patterns, and we're not aware of them until we pause. And we're living life so rushed and hurried, right? All the time. It's so busy, 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 that when you pause and you look internally, you can start to have some awareness of your patterns. But we can't see our own patterns because our ego and our thinking will just not allow us to see it, because it thinks that it's keeping us safe. So and then there's shaitan in there as well. He definitely doesn't want you to see your where you need to elevate or, you know, evolve and grow. He does not want you to grow. So he's going to put thoughts and things in your mind that are going to be very deceptive. So that would be my advice, is to turn back to Allah, ask Allah for what tell Allah to send you what you need. You know, you may not even know what you need. Tell Allah to send it to you, you know, and then seek out the help that you need, and it will come to you. And get support and help, because we have this stigma around getting help. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're perfectly imperfect the way Allah designed and created you. And you're not alone in this. You know, we all need help. We all need support. And I still, to this day, have mentors and coaches and part of masterminds and groups of people where we're supporting each other. We can't do this alone. We're not meant to live life alone. So don't sit alone with your thoughts, you know, recycling in your mind and taking you away from where you have the potential to be, because that can feel really isolating and really lonely. And I'm just going to end with something I heard, a hadith Qudsi the other day, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He created us for Him, and He created everything on this earth for us. We're chasing, whatever the things that we're chasing things, people, we're chasing all these things, and we forget to chase Allah. And so it just helped me actually to recenter and reground myself. Wait a minute. Emphasis has to be on my relationship with Allah, my relationship with myself. Everything else will fall into place after that. Everything else is there to serve me. I'm there to serve Allah.
Yeah. I'm completely here with you regarding this. I was just like reflecting what, COVID-19 has done to, the whole world as a collective, for ourselves. We were all forced to be able to, pause. That, it's called a grand pause, whereby everything was taken away from us. And the only being that we could run to was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and getting to learn through that process. So, when we come back and we ground ourselves and, like have that awakening and not be on autopilot, because I think the way, the society makes us become is, being this autopilot of what next kind of thing, without us really reflecting and getting to see what's going on. So my final question to you is, what advice would you give to someone going through, a painful experience right now, particularly, divorce, because this specific session is around divorce. So what kind of advice would you be able to give?
I think it would be really a lot of it is what I just said right now. And the other thing is reach out to somebody who understands and who can help you understand how you work psychologically, because pain, like we all feel pain, but like what the pain does to you, it doesn't have to destroy you. It doesn't have to hurt you, right? You can feel, just like we feel happiness, we feel sadness. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like we feel, even the Prophet, peace be upon him, and I think I mentioned this in my session, that even the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he was grieving the loss of his son Ibrahim, and he was crying, and he was reflecting being sad and still being connected to Allah, and not reacting from that space of sadness, right? Because we are very reactive. When we feel happy, we do something. When we feel sad, we we do something because we're sad. When we, like, I'm angry, I'm going to do this. I'm sad, I'm going to do this. I'm afraid, so I won't do this, and I will do this, right? So we're very like, get help with someone who can help you understand how to not act on your feelings. We're not here to act on our feelings. Our feelings are just our whims and our desires. They're not truth. Get help with somebody who will help you see what is the difference between your truth and the truth. The truth lies only with Allah. So how do we get there? If we're living in our own thinking and our own feelings, and that's our truth, how are we going to get, without clarity, without seeing the truth and clarity, how are we going to move forward? We're going to live in fear and anxiety and panic, and we're going to be making decisions based on fear and anxiety and panic, which a lot of the world is doing right now. So I would suggest is to reach out to somebody from Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy. You can reach out to me to help you deal with your process, your emotions and your feelings, and how to make good, clear decisions with tawakkul. Because you can have peaceful sadness. You can have peaceful anger, right? You can be in a state of peace and content and feel angry about something, but you're not reacting on that. You're letting that settle, and you're allowing your wisdom to make decisions from your wisdom, which is guidance from Allah, because that's what really gets us into trouble. That is what causes all the issues and problems in divorce and breakup that we see now, of people hurting each other, rather than divorcing in a manner that's pleasing to Allah, as He has guided us and directed us in the Quran.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much. It's been
My
really
pleasure.
lovely. Barakallahu fikum. It's been really lovely to listen to you. One last thing in terms of like, that detaching process for anybody, like, because obviously we know that, there's the peaceful, detaching with love and, whatever else that we get to see. But, as you mentioned, as I was listening to you, I just remembered this morning, I had one of my mentors say that you can have your feelings in the car with you, but let it not be in the steering wheel, because you need logic there. Because if you're using your feelings, then the car is going to crash, right?
Yeah. It's like, you don't just do something because you feel like it, right? The answer, like, why are you doing it? Because I feel like it. That's not the way you are designed to live life. And that type of life is going to derail you and destroy you. Like you said, if you're using your feelings in the steering wheel, you're going to crash.
Thank you so much for your time. So where can people find you, and how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, it was my pleasure to share my time with you, and to be in this space with all of you. I really appreciate that. And I'm on Instagram under Rayesa Gheewala. I'm on Facebook. I also have my website. I have some resources there on processing emotions such as grief when there's a loss. And I also have resources about like dispelling the myths around divorce, of why is divorce actually not a dirty word. And there's lots of other, resources in terms of my blog on my website, which is www.rayesagheewala.com. It's RayesaGheewala. So you can feel free to reach out to me on any of those platforms. Jazakallah khair, Khadija, for inviting me.
Yeah, Jazakallah khairan. It's been really inspiring, listening to your own journey.
So that's it for today's episode. I hope we've all been able to get some powerful nuggets from it and benefited from it. We've all had that we need to take 100% responsibility for the choices that we make in our lives. Because true empowerment is taking our power back, all our power back, including blame. We don't blame anything and anyone for anything that happens to us. Connecting to that, I've got a special announcement for you. I'm running a free interactive workshop next Saturday on the 9th of October, 2021. If you're listening to this before the 9th of October, it's at 2:30 British Summer Time, and we will be focusing on the systems and processes that we need to have in place to be able to attain the goals that we want, or the vision that we envision. Many a times we set these big goals, these amazing goals, but we often find ourselves being able to achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves. And then we beat ourselves for not attaining them, and go into the unhealthy, negative, patterns of self-loathing and self-shaming, which is very unhelpful. So to understand how we can be able to achieve these goals, I invite you to this free 1-hour interactive workshop next Saturday. The link is below the episode. So feel free to register, and I look forward to seeing you then, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.